They called him Gander, a massive black Newfoundland with fur like a winter coat and eyes that always looked like they understood more than they should. He wasn't born for war. No. Gander was born in a quiet little town in Newfoundland where kids would race to throw sticks and he'd waddle after them like a living teddy bear. "Come on, Gander," little Timmy would shout, tossing a ball, and Gander would go, ears flopping, tail wagging, leaving muddy paw prints all over the street. He belonged to the Crowley family. Mr. Crowley always said, "That dog's got more heart than half the men I served with." But then came the war. Posters went up. Letters came in. Sons were leaving. Fathers too. Even the peaceful streets of Newfoundland couldn't escape it. One cold morning, with snow still clinging to the rooftops, a military truck pulled into town. They were gathering supplies and volunteers. The Crowleys wanted to help. They offered food, coats, and accidentally Gander. You see, Gander had grown too big. One officer jokes, "That dog looks like he could carry a pack." They laughed. But 2 weeks later, a letter came. "Gander has been accepted into service." Effective. Immediately. "What? He's a dog," Timmy cried, clutching Gander's collar. But it was done. Gander was shipped out. No goodbye parade, no fuss, just a crate, a tag, and tear-stained eyes. As the train pulled away, Gander stared out the wooden slats. Not barking, not whining, just watching. Watching the life he was leaving behind and heading straight into a war that would test every part of his giant, gentle heart. The train wheels screeched. Gander's crate hit the ground with a dull thud. A young soldier peered in. Sir? There's a dog in this one. The camp at Valcartier, Quebec wasn't ready for him." Soldiers laughed when he stepped out, big, clumsy, and drooling like he owned the place. "Who let a bear in here?" one joked. But Gander didn't flinch. He walked through them like he belonged. Captain Fraser stepped forward, arms crossed. "We're not running a zoo," Private Barnes smiled. "He's got orders, sir. Says his name's Gander." A beat passed. Then someone tossed a stick. Gander caught it midair, dropped it at Fraser's feet. Laughter erupted. They made him a mascot. But Gander had other plans. That night, while others slept, Gander paced the perimeter. When a drunken fight broke out, he barked till help came. When a soldier collapsed during drill, Gander lay beside him until medics arrived. "Is he standing at attention?" one recruit whispered during roll call. He was. Every morning, Gander stood still, eyes forward like the rest of them. They gave him his own tag, sewed a patch to his collar, let him march beside them, and every time mail arrived, Gander sat by the bags, tail thumping. "Feels like home when he's around," said Barnes. He wasn't just a dog anymore. He was family. One night, while rain tapped the tents, a new recruit cried quietly. Gander crawled under the cot, head on the boy's chest. "Thanks, buddy," the boy whispered. Gander stayed there till morning. And just like that, the soldiers stopped laughing. They started saluting, calling him Private Gander. He didn't need to speak, didn't need to carry a gun. He carried something else. Hope. The ship rocked hard as it docked in Hong Kong. Gander stood at the edge of the ramp, ears up, tail still. The air was heavy. No more jokes, no more games. This was war. Soldiers marched out. Gander walked beside them, step for step. Private Barnes whispered, "Feels different now, doesn't it?" 3 days passed. Tension grew. Locals looked afraid. The sky always seemed too quiet. Then came the siren. Loud, sharp, terrifying. Men scrambled. Boots pounded the dirt. "Air raid! Get down!" Bombs fell. The ground shook like it was breaking. A Part 1 exploded just yards from the tents. Screams, smoke, fire. Some men froze. Others ran. But Gander, he ran toward the flames. "Where's the dog going?" someone yelled. Through the smoke they saw him, charging into the blast zone. A soldier lay pinned under debris, too hurt to move. Gander got there first. He barked loud and deep again and again. Private Miller spotted him. "Follow the dog!" 2 men dashed in, pulled the wounded out just before another bomb dropped. Later, Miller knelt beside Gander, running a hand through his soot-covered fur. You saved him, boy. You really did. Gander's tail gave a slow wag. That night the camp was quiet. Soldiers stared at their boots, the silence hanging heavy. Barnes finally spoke. He didn't even flinch. He's braver than any of us, someone muttered. Gander, curled up near the entrance of the tent, eyes wide open, guarding, listening. Not a single man slept without looking his way first. In one night, Gander stopped being just a soldier. He became their courage. Smoke still lingered in the air from the last raid. Soldiers barely spoke. They were tired, bruised, shaken. That night the jungle was too quiet. No wind, no birds. Gander sat near the edge of the camp, ears up, every muscle still. Private Miller noticed first. Why's he growling like that? Barnes looked up. He hasn't moved in 10 minutes. Then a deep, low snarl. Gander stood, tail stiff, teeth bared at the trees, suddenly crack. A single gunshot. Then chaos. Ambush! Someone screamed. Bullets tore through the dark. Shadows ran between trees. Explosions lit up the night. Gander charged, straight into the trees. Get down, take cover, officers yelled. Miller saw it. Gander tackling a figure near the edge, dragging him down. A shot rang out. Then silence. 2 soldiers ran after him, dodging fire. They found Gander biting into the sleeve of an enemy scout, holding him down. He caught one shouted. They pulled the man back. Enemy plans were found in his pocket. The rest scattered. Attack broken. Back at camp, Gander limped out of the brush, one ear bleeding. Barnes ran to him. You all right, big guy? Gander just gave a soft huff and laid down. They wrapped his wound with a torn shirt. Someone placed a helmet beside him, like a medal. Captain Fraser stood over them, shaking his head. He saved us all tonight. No one disagreed. That night, no one slept deeply. But they all slept safer, because now they knew Gander wasn't just a dog. He was a soldier on guard, and when the jungle went quiet again, they didn't worry, because if anything came for them, Gander would hear it first. The morning after the ambush, Gander lay with his head resting on a soldier's boot. He hadn't slept. None of them really had. Rations were low, ammo even lower. The enemy was closing in fast. Every day felt shorter. Every night felt longer. Gander hasn't eaten in 2 days, Miller said, looking at his half ration. Barnes tore a piece of his bread and dropped it in front of Gander. Here, you deserve more than any of us. Gander sniffed it, then pushed it back with his nose. He stayed alert, eyes on the jungle. Bombs started falling again by noon. Dirt flew, trees cracked, men screamed. Gander ran into the smoke every time, guiding the wounded back. He didn't wait for orders. He was the order. During one attack, a grenade landed near the tent. Barnes screamed, "Gander, no!" But the dog was faster. He knocked it into a ditch with his paw before it exploded. Debris flew. Gander rolled back. But he got up. Blood trickled from his side, but he stood tall, tail stiff. Fraser stared in disbelief. He's not just a dog. He's one of us. That night it rained. Hard. Men huddled close. Gander went tent to tent, checking on each soldier like a silent captain. Miller whispered, "I don't think I could make it through this without him." No one argued. They had lost friends, lost ground, but they hadn't lost hope. Because every time it felt like too much, they saw Gander, wounded, starving, still fighting. He reminded them what courage looked like, and in that bloody, broken jungle, he was the only reason some of them kept standing. The attack had slowed, but no one felt safe. The northern edge of camp was the weakest spot, and command needed a watch. "Private Miller," the captain said, "you're taking night post on the north line." Miller nodded, though his hands shook. "Yes, sir." "And take Gander with you." Miller looked down at the dog. Gander's fur was still caked with dry blood, but he stood, ready. They reached the post just before sundown. No light, no noise, Just shadows stretching between trees. Miller whispered, "It's just you and me tonight, buddy." Gander sat beside him, motionless, not even a tail wag. Hours passed. Every leaf crackled louder in the dark. Miller gripped his rifle tighter. Then, a rustle. Too close. Gander rose, ears high. A low growl rumbled from his chest. Suddenly, two dark figures broke from the brush, enemy scouts, silent and fast. Miller froze, but Gander didn't. He lunged. A blur of black fur and teeth. One scout went down, the other raised his weapon. "Gander!" Miller shouted and fired. Silence fell. Gander stood over the first man, panting hard, eyes wild. Miller dropped beside him. "You okay, boy? You saved me." Gander licked the blood from his paw, then looked away like nothing happened. When they returned, the captain asked, "What happened out there?" Miller saluted. "The dog did what I couldn't. He saw them first." That night, Gander curled beside Miller's cot. From that day on, they were never seen apart. Where Miller went, Gander followed. Not just a guard anymore. A friend, a shield, a reason to believe they'd make it through this war. And in the quiet of that brutal jungle, Gander had earned something no medal could give. Someone who would never leave his side. Gander didn't move much the next morning. His body was still, eyes locked on the jungle like they could see through the trees. Miller offered him water. "Come on, boy, you need something." Nothing. No bark. No wag. Not even a blink. Something was wrong. "He's hurt," Barnes said, kneeling. "Check his side." "No. He's not hurt," Miller said quietly. "He's waiting." The air felt different. The kind of quiet that doesn't last long. No birds, no wind. Even the men felt it, like the jungle was holding its breath. Fraser walked past, pausing to stare at Gander. He knows something. That night, Gander didn't sleep. He stood, unmoving, at the edge of the camp, eyes sharp, body ready. "He's been like that for hours," someone whispered. Miller sat beside him, whispering, "What is it, boy?" No answer. Just silence. Gander didn't blink, didn't twitch, like he was carved from stone. The next day passed the same way. The soldiers grew restless. Tension sat heavy on their shoulders. Barnes muttered, "I'd rather face bullets than whatever Gander thinks is coming." Then as the sun began to set, a sound, distant, low, like thunder under the earth. Gander's ears twitched. He growled, just once, and every man stood up, weapons ready, hearts racing. He wasn't being strange. He was warning them again, and this time, they knew better than to doubt him. The growl Gander gave wasn't like before. It was deep, final, like he knew what was coming. And then, the world cracked open. Explosions hit from every side. Trees splintered, dirt flew, the Battle of Hong Kong had begun. Men screamed. Guns fired nonstop. Orders got lost in the chaos. But Gander didn't flinch. He ran straight into it, no hesitation. "Gander, come back," Miller yelled. But the dog was already gone, disappearing into the smoke. Like a shadow, enemy troops poured in. The Canadians were pushed back. They were outnumbered, outgunned. Everywhere you looked, someone was falling. Yet in the middle of it all, there he was, Gander, dragging stretchers, barking warnings, chasing down soldiers who wandered too far. One man cried out, "Where's command?" Another shouted, "Follow the dog, he knows." And they did. Gander weaved through bullets and fire like he was made for it. Barnes ducked beside a burning jeep. He's not afraid of anything. Fraser crouched beside him. He's got more guts than any of us. By sundown, their lines were broken, supplies gone, hope fading. Still, Gander didn't stop. He stood in the middle of the ruined camp, chest rising, blood on his fur, smoke around him. He didn't bark. He didn't move. He just stood there, watching, daring anything to come closer. The soldiers didn't say it, but they felt it. If Gander was still standing, and so would they. Because when everything else was lost, they had one thing left, a black dog in the fire. And somehow, that was enough. By morning, the ground was slick with blood and frost. The cold crept in fast, biting every breath. Gander limped into camp, his front leg dragging. Shrapnel was lodged deep. "Medic!" Miller screamed. "He's hit!" They rushed to him, but Gander snapped his teeth, not in anger but warning. He wasn't done. He turned and limped toward the field again. "Where's he going?" Barnes asked. "To bring them back," Fraser answered quietly. Gander vanished into the smoke. Minutes passed. Then he returned, guiding 2 wounded soldiers, one dragging himself, the other leaning on the dog's thick side. "Follow him." One of them gasped. "He saved us." Again and again Gander led more men through the crossfire. He barked at the skies when planes flew too low, barked at the ground to warn of mines, barked louder than any officer. When men hesitated, they looked at him and followed. Fraser pulled Miller aside. "That dog's doing more than half the unit." Miller wiped tears from his face. "I know, but he's bleeding, sir. Bad." They tried tying a cloth around his leg. Gander chewed it off. He kept going. He didn't whine, didn't cry. He just moved. And somehow, so did everyone else. One medic whispered, "He's leading us, not command. Him." Gander paused only once, at the edge of the jungle. He looked back at Miller, eyes full of something more than pain, almost like he was saying, "I'll keep going if you do." Miller nodded. "You're not alone, buddy." And side by side, they stepped into the smoke again, in a war where every inch felt like a mile. Gander made those miles possible. With every limp, he carried the weight of men who couldn't walk anymore, and not one of them took a step without him. The radio crackled. Orders were clear. Evacuation at dawn. Retreat immediately. Fraser gathered the men. "We move out in 30. Take only what you need." Miller looked at Gander, limping, still bleeding, but alive. "What about him?" he asked. Fraser hesitated. "Orders say no animals." Miller stepped forward. "Then I'm staying." Barnes stood up. "Me too." One by one the soldiers backed away from their gear. "If Gander doesn't go," someone said, "we don't go." Fraser looked around, eyes hard but full. "You're really willing to risk it?" "He saved all of us," Miller said. "Now it's our turn." Gander watched them quietly, like he understood every word. They built a stretcher, tried to get him on it. He refused. So Miller dropped his rifle, crouched down, and whispered, "I got you." He lifted Gander onto his back. Heavy, so heavy. But Miller didn't flinch. "Let's move," Fraser shouted. The jungle path was narrow, soaked with blood and mud. Bombs still echoed in the distance. Every step Miller took was slower, shoulders trembling. "Need help?" Barnes asked. "I got him," Miller said, teeth gritted. "He carried us for weeks. I can carry him for a mile." Gander didn't make a sound, just rested his head on Miller's shoulder. By nightfall, they reached the edge of the safe zone. A medic tried to take Gander. "He stays with me," Miller snapped. Fraser nodded. "He's earned it." They found shelter, just enough warmth to stop shaking. Miller set Gander down gently, wrapped him in his coat. "Rest now, buddy," he whispered. "We're safe. You're safe." Gander blinked slowly, eyes soft. A moment of peace. But the war wasn't over. Not yet. And the next moment would change everything. They thought they had time, just a few minutes to breathe, regroup, heal, but war doesn't wait. The sun hadn't even risen when it hit again. Gunfire, yelling, chaos. A small team was cornered behind a half-destroyed wall. Miller, Barnes, and 3 others huddled tight. Shots cracked overhead. Then came the sound. A clink, a small cold metal clink on the ground. A grenade. It landed in the middle of them, bouncing once. Everything slowed. Miller's eyes widened. No. No. Time to think. No time to run. But one figure moved. Gander. Without a bark, without a sound, he lunged, teeth clenched around the grenade. He ran, 3 steps, 4, then, boom, silence, smoke, dust, a ringing in every ear. The men opened their eyes. No one was hurt, but Gander was gone. Barnes dropped to his knees. No. No. Miller stumbled forward, hands shaking. He saved us. All that remained was part of his collar, torn, burned. Fraser arrived, eyes full. That dog, that soldier, just gave everything. No one spoke. No one could. They buried what they had in a quiet corner of the jungle. No speeches, just tears. Miller placed his dog tag beside the collar. You were more than one of us, Gander. You were all of us. For a long time, no one moved, even in war, where death was everywhere. This felt different, because this wasn't just a loss, it was a sacrifice, and it would never be forgotten. The smoke began to clear. Guns stopped firing, but the silence, it wasn't peace, it was grief. Miller stood frozen, his ears still ringing from the blast. Bits of dust clung to his uniform. He looked around, eyes wide, searching. Where is he? He whispered. Barnes didn't answer. Then, Miller saw it, part of Gander's collar, burned and torn, caught on a twisted piece of metal. He walked over, picked it up gently, and dropped to his knees. He didn't have to, Miller said, voice cracking. But he did. No one moved. No one dared speak. Fraser finally stepped forward, hat in hand. We should gather what we can. But there wasn't much. No body, no howl. Just a space where something brave used to be. The battlefield was still. No birds, no wind. Just men staring at the ground, trying to breathe through the ache. Barnes sat down next to Miller. You think he knew? Miller nodded. He knew everything. The medics packed up what they could. The soldiers began the slow walk back to camp, but Miller stayed behind a little longer. He held the collar tight in his fist. You saved me more than once, he whispered. I wish I could have saved you. A single tear dropped into the dirt. Gander's spot was left untouched. No, one walked over it. No one even looked directly at it. It wasn't just where a dog had fallen, it was where courage had stood. That night, no one joked, no one laughed. They just sat close, shoulder to shoulder, feeling the hole left behind. And though they couldn't see him, every man there felt it. Something was missing, and it would never be filled again. The next morning, the sky was gray. Not from smoke, but from mourning. They didn't have much, no coffin, no trumpet, just a piece of torn cloth and a name that meant everything. They buried what was left of Gander beneath a quiet tree, far from the chaos. Fraser led the way. His voice was soft. He deserves more than this. Miller carried the collar, wrapped in his scarf. He placed it on the fresh dirt, hands shaking. No flags, no music, just tears, Barnes whispered. One by one, the soldiers stepped forward. Some said nothing. Some laid a hand on the ground. Some couldn't stop crying. A few feet away, a small cross was carved from a broken rifle. It read, Private Gander, he saved us all. Fraser cleared his throat. We say goodbye today to more than a dog. We say goodbye to the bravest soul I've ever known. Miller stepped up last. He never left our side, even when we told him not to. The wind stirred, brushing through the trees like a whisper. Barnes turned, eyes scanning the edge of the woods. Did you see that? Miller followed his gaze. Just for a second, a black shape moved between the trees. Big, silent, then gone. Could have sworn, Barnes muttered. Maybe he's still watching, Miller said quietly, making sure we get home. That night no one slept easily, but they weren't scared, because deep in their hearts they believed something. Gander hadn't really left. He was still out there, guarding them, guiding them like he always did. Years passed. The war ended. Soldiers came home, but not all of them. and not Gander. For a long time, his name was only spoken in hushed stories, around campfires, in old letters, in memories too sharp to forget, until someone finally spoke up. A surviving officer wrote a letter. He wasn't a pet. He was a soldier. He saved lives. The letter made its way to the right hands, and then it happened. In a small ceremony far from the battlefield, a medal was placed beside Gander's collar, still scorched from that final moment. It was the Dickon Medal, the highest honor for animal bravery. Fraser stood before a small crowd. "This medal isn't just for a dog," he said. "It's for a brother, for someone who never asked why, never ran, never stopped." Miller was there too. His voice cracked when he stepped up. He didn't carry a gun. He didn't wear a helmet. But he had more courage than any of us. Applause was quiet, respectful. The medal was set in a glass case, etched beneath it. Private Gander, for valor beyond measure. News spread. People who never met him began to care. Kids read about him in school. Veterans nodded in silence. Journalists called it long overdue. Barnes later said, "Funny how it took the world years to see what we already knew." But for those who had stood beside him, it wasn't about the medal. It was about remembering, because Gander didn't fight for glory. He fought for them. And now, the world finally knew his name, not just as a dog, but as a hero. In the center of Gander's hometown, a statue now stands. It's tall, proud, cast in bronze. A Newfoundland dog with strong shoulders, calm eyes, and a collar around his neck. Kids run past it every day, laughing, never knowing the full story. But some stop. Some read the plaque. Some ask, did he really save people? Their parents nod. He saved a lot of people. Every December, something special happens. Veterans from across the country gather there. No big speeches, no reporters, just men and women with medals on their jackets and tears in their eyes. They stand before the statue and whisper thanks. Some bring old photos, some bring their children. Miller comes every year. He stands the longest, one hand in his pocket, the other brushed the bronze paw. "Still watching over us, huh?" he says quietly. "I knew you would." Barnes visits too. "Leave a piece of bread at the base, just like the jungle days." He chuckles softly. There's no music, no gun salute, just silence, the kind of silence that holds meaning. Because Gander wasn't just a story, he was family. And though he's gone, he's not really gone. Not to the ones who remember, not to the ones who lived because of him. The statue faces the sea where ships once left and never returned, and maybe, just maybe, that's where Gander's spirit still roams, guarding, guiding, the same way he always did. One dog, a gentle giant from Newfoundland, who didn't hesitate, who ran toward the danger, who gave his life, so others could live. And in that one final moment, Gander didn't just change the war, he changed the world. If Gander's story moved you even a little, hit that like button to honor his bravery. Subscribe for more true and emotional animal stories that deserve to be remembered. Comment below. What would you say to Gander if you could?